Welcome to the Nation of History channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. In July 1922, a presentation titled World's Largest Woman and Smallest Man brought together Nellie Blanche Lane, who weighed approximately 642 pounds, and Clarence Chesterfield Howerton, who measured about 2 feet 4 inches in height. The Congress of Freaks of the Ringling Brothers gathered for a group portrait. This special lineup featured performers with unusual physical characteristics or abilities who took part in acts meant to spark public curiosity. In the 1890s, George Shelley is seen holding Crow Farini, a show performer in the United States who was born with hypertrichosis, a genetic condition characterized by excessive hair growth on the body and face. In 1890, Fannie Mills, known as the Ohio Bigfoot Girl, gained notoriety for her rare medical condition, Milroy disease, a congenital disorder of the lymphatic system that caused chronic lymphedema, making her legs and feet extremely large. At the Greenbrier Valley Fair, Bear Mann, a bearded dwarf performer, was recorded moving on all fours, imitating the movements of a bear. This kind of presentation reflected the attention-grabbing, exotic style of entertainment from past decades. Young workers stood in a bib mill factory in Macon, Georgia, in January 1909, part of the region's important textile industry where factories brought together large numbers of people for long production shifts. A person was hospitalized in a mental health institution in the early 20th century, depicting part of the everyday life inside those facilities and how care spaces were organized at the time, many of which were later replaced by modern treatment models. In the 1930s, crowds packed the midway of a circus, the main passage leading into the Big Top, the large central tent where the main performances took place, buzzing with movement as announcers called visitors to the sideshow, attractions lined along the path. The Eiffel Tower has been repainted 18 times since its original construction, a process carried out on average every 7 years, as seen in a 1932 image of workers performing one of those regular repaintings. In the early 1930s, maintenance workers were photographed making repairs to the airship Graf Zeppelin while it flew over the ocean during a transatlantic trip. Pope John Paul II met with Mehmet Agca in 1983, 2 years after a previous episode, inside a detention facility, a moment recorded as one of dialogue and reconciliation. Investor Walter Thornton was photographed attempting to sell his luxury Chrysler Imperial 75 Roadster for $100 on the streets of New York in the United States on the same day as the New York Stock Exchange crash, the starting point of a period of severe economic crisis. German women cleared rubble on Tauentzienstrasse in Berlin in 1945, with the ruins of the Kaiser Wilhelm Church in the background, portraying local efforts to rebuild. A Dutch woman accompanied her husband, a German soldier, as he was taken into captivity by Allied forces in Walcheren in November 1944, showing how personal decisions also marked that historical period. A horse-shaped device was used in the United States in 1957 to help children remain still during chest radiograph examinations, a piece of equipment intended to reduce movement and make image capture easier. Soviet soldiers posed for a group photo after the fall of the provisional government on November 7, 1917, a turning point in the country's history that brought together fighters in a mood of victory. About 300,000 people gathered in Paris in support of President Charles de Gaulle in one of the largest demonstrations in 20th century France, with signs showing messages of solidarity such as, "De Gaulle is not alone." A record from East London in October 1936 shows residents gathered in the streets during a time marked by major social and political mobilizations. Robin Williams appeared in a light-hearted 1990s record interacting with Auguste Rodin's The Thinker sculpture by playfully adding toilet paper, reflecting the relaxed style that marked his career. The Bronx Zoo in New York presented an exhibition titled The Most Dangerous Animal in the World that contained a mirror so that visitors saw their own reflection, delivering a message about the human impact on the environment and wildlife. Glendale, California, organized a drive-through vaccination system in September 1960, created in response to a poliomyelitis outbreak, during which 2,250 doses were applied in only 2.5 hours. The first passengers of the New York subway traveled in October 1904, a major transformation in the city's urban mobility as thousands of people lined up to experience the new system on its opening day. Pelé performed his famous bicycle kick at Maracanã Stadium in Rio de Janeiro in 1965, a play remembered as one of the most notable of his career that shows the skill and creativity that defined his style of play. In 1962, Motorola released a television with a remote control, considered at the time one of the greatest innovations in home entertainment, allowing users to change channels and adjust functions from a distance. The control panel of the Aston Martin Lagonda drew attention for its futuristic, innovative design for the time, with digital instruments and refined finishes that combined advanced technology with the brand's characteristic luxury. The Cadillac V16 Series 90 Cabriolet, customized by the coach builder Hartmann, stood out as one of the most luxurious and exclusive automobiles of its era, with elegant lines, imposing proportions, and refined finishes representing the peak of automotive design in the 1930s. New Ford automobiles were delivered by train in the 1940s, a common method for distributing vehicles at scale, as long railway consists traveled great distances, carrying hundreds of cars at once. The first photographic record of a front-wheel lift maneuver took place in 1936, a milestone in the world of motorcycles that became one of the best-known images among collectors of vintage vehicle records. In 1939, the Le Hêtre tank bike was introduced, a French experimental vehicle that combined features of a motorcycle and a light tank with reinforced wheels and a robust structure designed to handle difficult terrain. An unidentified performer called the public to Dreamland in Coney Island, New York, in the early 1910s in an arena dedicated to shows with trained animals, part of the famous amusement parks that define the area. In the 1910s, a performer known as the Colossal Woman appeared from Russia, taking part in traveling shows and international fairs where her striking height and physique were the main draw. The area located just behind the main tent of a circus, where performers prepared and organized their entrances through the so-called back door, came to be known as the backyard. In that space, final adjustments to costumes, warm-ups, and quick rehearsals were carried out before the shows. The interior of a Pierce Arrow automobile dealership in the state of Missouri in 1931 presented the brand's luxury models to the public, showing the sophistication associated with the automotive sector at the time. Two waiters served lunch to two workers during the construction of the Waldorf Astoria Hotel on Park Avenue in New York in 1930, a building that became one of the city's best-known hotels. A photograph of Central Park in New York records the scene during the Great Depression, showing people using the public space amid economically challenging times and revealing how the park served as a gathering and leisure point for the population. At 23 years of age, Gary Anderson created the famous recycling symbol for a design competition, a proposal of three arrows forming a continuous triangle that became an international icon associated with environmental conservation and material reuse. Sir Winston Churchill was photographed holding a Thompson model 1928 during an inspection of the Home Guard near Hartlepool in the United Kingdom, recording a moment when the Prime Minister actively visited and accompanied local forces. In December 1998, Vice President Al Gore was photographed preparing to speak with White House staff shortly after the impeachment process of President Bill Clinton. Stephen Hawking was photographed next to his wife, Jane Wilde, shortly after their wedding, a personal and significant moment in the life of the physicist who would become one of the world's best-known scientists. In 1965, the first miniskirts reached fashion in Lithuania, marking a significant change in women's clothing, with photographs showing young people wearing the garment as a symbol of modernity and cultural influences from abroad. A man took his mother to vote in the first general election of independent India in 1952, a landmark for the country's democracy, as millions of citizens participated and marked the beginning of a new historical stage. An assembly line for the B-24 bomber operated at a United States Army Air Forces factory in Fort Worth, Texas, in 1943, as part of a large-scale industrial effort that involved thousands of workers. King Gustav V of Sweden was recorded after an automobile accident during his time on the throne, an episode that drew public attention and was widely discussed, with the detail that he reigned from 1907 to 1950, making him one of Sweden's longest reigning monarchs. A large political gathering took place in Buenos Aires in 1938 inside a covered arena, a scene that shows the scale of mobilization organized during that period. United States veterans of the First World War gathered in 1978 to remember experiences from decades earlier in a scene of camaraderie and reunion. Tourists took photographs during a visit to South Africa in 1968, reflecting the growth of international travel at the time as many people began using portable cameras to preserve memories of their trips. Operation Baby Lift transported more than 3,300 Vietnamese children to the United States by air during the final moments of the conflict in Vietnam, with the aim of offering new homes across different regions of the country. A group of young French and German women took part in a posture session at a Trans World Airlines flight attendant school in Kansas City in 1961 as part of preparation for work aboard aircraft. A flock of sheep crossed the Grand Coulee Dam in 1930, a curious moment recorded during the early phase of regional construction that showed how the space still served everyday activities while the project advanced. Residents fished in the Tiber River near Castel Sant'Angelo in Rome in 1868 when it was still part of the Papal States, as fishing served as a common means of subsistence for many families. A woman drove a miniature car in London in 1939 that measured only about 59 inches in length and, despite its small size, could reach speeds of up to about 40 miles per hour. The Burger Queen lunch counter in Tampa, Florida, around the 1950s was part of the expansion of fast food chains in the United States, with many such establishments becoming popular gathering spots for families and young people. Created by Hollywood makeup artist Max Factor in the 1940s, the ice mask was intended to reduce facial swelling and was worn before makeup application, reflecting the period's search for innovative beauty techniques. Passengers read their morning newspapers in the New York subway in 1963, a common habit during the commute that shows the subway as a space of routine and information for thousands of people. A 100-year-old record shows the beauty of a traditional Rwandan hairstyle that reflected cultural identity and local tradition, prepared with care and carrying special meanings. Children played in Manchester in 1971, with the urban setting serving as a place for daily socializing and fun during a period of major industrial and cultural change in the city. Red Cross workers operated in St. Louis during the 1918 influenza epidemic, assisting families and organizing community care as uniformed teams worked in the city's streets. A Navajo group gathered in Canyon de Chelly in Arizona in 1904, a place considered sacred and culturally important to the people, showing the community's connection with the natural landscape. Visitors at the Melbourne Zoo in Australia in 1895 enjoyed one of the city's main leisure sites as families spent time together and saw different species. A Klamath leader stood on a hill overlooking Crater Lake in Oregon in 1923, a place considered sacred in that native tradition and a scene that shows the strong cultural connection between the community and the natural landscape. Chief Dustmaker of the Ponca tribe in northern Nebraska was photographed in a formal portrait that preserves details of traditional clothing and adornments, reflecting the identity and historical heritage of his people. The Alcazar of Segovia in Spain was seen from another angle, one of the country's best-known castles with architecture that mixes medieval and Renaissance elements, and that inspired the Disney Cinderella castle. Vineyards recorded in 1888 by photographer Emilio Boschi show the period's agricultural landscape, highlighting cultivation and work in rural areas as Boschi documented daily life and social changes of his time. Fashion models rested on a street corner in Milan, Italy, in 1951, in a city already one of Europe's main textile centers, capturing the contrast between elegance and urban everyday life. A boy stood in a living room in West Virginia in 1935, in a photograph by Walker Evans that shows family daily life in a domestic setting, as Evans became known for documenting rural communities during the Great Depression. A portrait of Phineas Taylor Barnum next to General Tom Thumb by Marcus Aurelius Root and Samuel Root around 1850 shows two well-known names in 19th century entertainment, with such portraits helping to publicize artists and impresarios of the time. Charles Sherwood Stratton, known as Tom Thumb and a member of Phineas Taylor Barnum's traveling company, was photographed at his wedding in 1863, an event that drew great public attention and was widely reported in newspapers and illustrations. Royal Air Force pilot Francis Mellersh received a haircut while reading the book Green Mantle by John Buchan in Essex, England, in 1942, a moment that captures a pause in military daily life. The band Lynyrd Skynyrd performed before a crowd in England in 1976, a moment marked by the audience's energy and the strength of the musical movement of the era. An early use of a photographic support similar to the modern selfie stick appeared in the 1940s, allowing a person to capture an image without help, a simple resource that showed innovation for its time. Fidel Castro took part in a blood donation in 1962 to assist people affected by an earthquake in Peru, an initiative that gathered international support in solidarity with the impacted communities and showed a symbolic act of humanitarian aid. Food portions distributed through rationing in Great Britain in the 1940s were designed to ensure balanced supplies for the population as families received cards that determined the quantities of products they could obtain. A man celebrated enthusiastically at the launch of the Windows 95 operating system, an event that became one of the technology industry's biggest successes as thousands of people lined up and celebrated in different cities. Employees cleaned the wax figure of Joseph Stalin at the Madame Tussauds Museum around 1930, maintenance necessary to preserve the sculpture's details. A Hoopa woman was recorded in 1923 wearing traditional clothing with necklaces and cultural adornments, a type of photograph that helped preserve the visual memory of native communities in California, where the Hoopa lived primarily in the Trinity River Valley in the northern part of the state. A record was produced artificially to simulate a real moment, showing how a staged image can be as striking as an authentic one, and how photography has also been used as a representational resource. If you enjoyed this video and want to support the channel, please use the Super Thanks tool below. Your contribution helps us keep bringing you amazing historical content. Thank you so much for your support, and see you in the next video.